Hi, Louisa. Welcome to the New York Information Security. How are you?
Hi, David. I'm fine. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. It's funny. I asked you to close down a couple windows, and you said, "Uh-oh, this is my work laptop. I have everything open up here."
That's
So
how
I,
it goes. That's typical.
yeah, I know. It's 5:30, in the evening on March 8th. It's International Women's Day. So welcome. I have a great pleasure to introduce.
Woohoo!
Yeah, Louisa Petsitis. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Petsitis, yes,
Yeah,
very close.
yeah, first time. So welcome, and I really appreciate you doing this. Again, not every time I have a chance to introduce a cyber professional who's been in this industry for a while and has a lot of experience, as well as is giving back to the community. I noticed that you always are up for participating in events like this, as well as giving back to a different organization as well. So I wanted to thank you for that. And why don't we get started? So first and foremost, maybe you can give me like some little bit of background. How you got into information security, well, now cybersecurity, and
Right.
what attracted you to this field, and how were you just growing up?
Okay. I guess my story is a little bit different or maybe unique from others in the field. Originally, I guess growing up, I was a writer. I wanted to be a writer, and that was my passion. I went to school. I went up after high school. I went to college and I studied communications and minored in English. And then when I graduated, I actually went into the field of publishing first. And I worked for a company that you may know of. They published all of the Dummies books. The name of the company is John Wiley and Sons. So if you ever see, Microsoft or Windows OS for Dummies. That's the company I went to work for. And I started out as an assistant. I made it up to to the production area where I was on the computer book line because as a publisher, they publish trade books, college textbooks, but somehow I ended up there was an opening on the computer book line. So I'm reading along these computer books and things are kind of sinking in. But really, I can't say that's where my passion for cyber came from. As the years went on, publishing started to actually go to the web. There was a lot of my friends who were moving to companies like EarthWeb. They were doing content editing. And slowly, I started to realize that even as I moved up, to associate editor, the opportunities were diminishing. And I worked for a company in 1999 that was bought out, and I found myself unemployed for the millennium. In 2000, I kind of had to reassess myself and say, well, you know, every time I go for a job interview, they're asking if I know HTML or if I know Photoshop and all these computer programs that I didn't have in my background. So I said, I would like to brush up. I'm going to go back to school. I was starting to get into web design and web development. But when I went back to school, um, I had this opportunity to try out other um, courses. And I think my freshman year, I got into a forensics class. It was a computer forensics class. And that really piqued my interest. And then I think there was a point where I could have veered toward like visual communications and a little bit more of the web design, but I decided to go towards programming, and I finished with a degree in business computer information systems, and that was around 2006. So at that time, I was very new to IT. I was scared because I felt like no one's going to hire me. I don't have any experience. Even with the small internship I was able to get, but an opportunity did arise. At the time I was working for a staffing agency and a company on Long Island who was a Fortune 500 company at the time. They were like the top three businesses on Long Island. They were looking for a security administrator. So my boss at the staffing company, she encouraged me to go for it. She's like, "Oh, well, you just got your degree. This is a really good match. And cyber is a hot field." Again, it was called information security at the
Yeah.
time.
Well, this was
And
2006, right?
2006,
Wow,
2006.
that's amazing.
Um, and the truth is, it really was starting to open up. So I got in at the ground level. What's crazy is that even though this was an international organization, they had a very small security department. I guess everything else was kind of um, uh, the functions were desegregated throughout infrastructure.
Mhm.
So this was a way for me to get in on the ground floor. It was a sec admin position where I would be doing the provisioning and deprovisioning of accounts, and I was like the right hand person to the director of information security. And honestly, I couldn't have been more grateful. He became my mentor. The man, and I wanna name him, but I'm just
Sure.
gonna call him. He's probably retired by now, but his name was Paul Young,
Uh-huh.
and he had worked at the NSA. He had worked at Grumman. He had worked at Ernst and Young. He had worked at Sendon. He had worked in the industry for 25 years. So he was very well versed, very knowledgeable, and he was able to speak in layman's terms because if he were too technical, I wouldn't have been able to understand the tasks at hand. But everything he gave me, I completed it, and then I was like looking for more work. I'm like, give me more work. So what started out as just like security administration, then he looped me in on projects like rolling out full disk encryption, and then we got a DLP solution, and being that I was the only um, person in under him in the department, I mean, he worked alongside a director of IT risk. So it was the director of security, the director of risk management, and then me. I was like the little worker bee. So that was my start. And what was great was that we were able to build out the department. We were able to get temporary consultants who I trained, and then we built out the program. We worked on the global policies, so I got more and more experience under my belt. So by the time I left there, you know, I felt like I was a generalist and that I could go into almost any area, because I had some project management under me. I had some operational skills. I had writing. I was writing guidelines and procedures for anyone who came in after me. So it was really a good experience. I'm proud of the work I did with that company. And by the time I left, I was ready for the next step, which was stepping into a more, I would say, senior analyst role
So
um,
before we jump into
in
that,
Manhattan.
I like to, so this is an amazing experience. So I like to kind of like touch upon this, and I tell people that just starting in cyber that it's actually harder today when you go into like a large Fortune company. Your role is very much defined, so you're not exposed like you did back in the day to all kinds of projects.
Right.
And so what I suggest now to people is to do what you just did, but on a smaller scale, maybe join a startup where you're the only security person there, and attach yourself to a mentor just like that, and then get your hands dirty in everything, including desktop networks, endpoint security, anything that relates to security, even policies and anything that you can do, because that is the key to get yourself kind of well-rounded at kind of the ground level, and also I guess figure out what you like and what you don't like in this industry.
I agree. And I had a natural curiosity, maybe because it was my first job in IT. So I made friends with people in the other departments. I learned real quick that if you align yourself or have an ally on the help desk, you get to meet people really quick. so and of course the help desk, they have their own culture. Because it's usually that's a very stressful area. The the team that was there, they were a lot of pranksters, so I kind of fell in with them, but I got to meet a lot of the people within the organization. And I also got to ask them questions. Like if I didn't understand something, if I didn't understand like how we provision VPN, or what some of the financial systems did, I kind of asked them, and if I was lucky, they would show me. If they didn't have time, then I'd ask them another time. But I think what you just touched on is very important, because in these larger organizations that have massive teams, everybody's like a cog on that team, and they're just doing their little bit, and it all works together in the big machine. But if you can kind of learn what the other cogs are doing, even if it's just not their whole job, but just a portion of it, you kind of build the bigger picture in your head, and that really helps you when you're working within the organization, but it also helps you understand the world of cybersecurity. And the truth is, um, I could have stayed at that company for decades. I mean, I was well liked, I did well, um, and I had reputation there. But I think when I left, a lot of it was because I felt like I needed to grow, and I wanted to push myself. I didn't want to see things just through that lens, like just the way that company did their work. It was a supply chain organization, so there was, and they were on the stock market, so they worked with SOX compliance, PCI compliance. But then the next company I went to was
Before I
just
touch
totally
upon that,
different. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
before,
sorry.
just no, it's just, it's great. But I wanted to like just maybe kind of sharpen a couple things that you just said that came out. So first of all, I find having natural curiosity is a common thread with a lot of the cybersecurity professionals, and the ability to ask questions and basically, get out of your comfort zone, and be self-learning, right? So like you as you mentioned, if you heard, how do you set up a VPN, you were not afraid to basically go out there and ask, how do you do that, and learn. And then the other piece, which I thought was brilliant, is that you mentioned that you have to have allies. And in this particular case, you mentioned you have to have allies within the help desk. But I think that's true in general, as to be successful in cybersecurity, you have to have allies everywhere in the business, especially in large organizations. That means that, for every project, there's like, the business unit, the architecture, the network folks, compliance, audit, all there's a lot of moving parts. And you need the, kind of the ally. So it seems like you learned a lot of like the fundamentals of,
Right.
even in that like role, in the basic role, have allies, ask the questions, learn a lot, about new technologies and so on. So I just wanted to kind of touch that, that was brilliant. So sorry, next role, what did you do the next one? And then it's also amazing that you decided to
To
not,
leave.
yeah, decided to leave, despite the fact that you could have wrote it out for a few more years.
I could have, and I was pushing to get a promotion. I really felt like I had gained the seniority. I actually took it upon myself to get the CISSP because no one had it in the department.
Mhm.
My mentor had told me that it was a very coveted certification. So I asked for the training, but of course, there's not always a budget for everyone for
And that was
training.
early as well, right? Lisa,
It
that's,
was. I got it in 2011 or 2012. I can't even
yeah, it's fairly
remember.
early. Yeah.
But I know I was very. It was a very arduous task. It required a year of me studying because I think I had just gotten past the 5-year mark that you need for your background, and I put my money and my time into it, but I knew that it was a means to an end, and I wanted to. I was pretty ambitious. I wanted to move up, and I wanted to help develop the team. When I started, like I said, I was just one person. When I left, I think there were 4. So there were 2 analysts, they had a sec admin, and then they had just hired somebody for operations. And I'm just talking low level. I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
directors or above.
And it's amazing that you decided to basically pay from your own pocket to go through the certification, which wasn't easy. I took mine back in 2005, and my employer at the time said, "We'll pay for it, but only if you pass it." So, and I was very, I didn't have a lot of money back then, and
Right.
it was a big risk for me to lose that exam, so I had to pass it the first time around. Um, so this
No,
is,
same here. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money. The position, even though I got in when I did and I negotiated as well as I could, um, it was still a low level peanuts. I had a lot of costs at the time. So, but I really felt like if I could prove myself and maybe move up to the next level, that the money would follow. And that's what you have to do. You have to invest in yourself. And to tell you the truth, I tell anyone on my team who I've managed that they should invest in themselves and not wait for a company to pay for them. Because not every company can afford it. Not every company values education. They feel like if they educate their people will leave right after. And there's the old adage that if you don't educate your people, they'll stay. And then you have stale workers. You have people who know Windows 98. I mean, that's the downside.
hey, Windows 98 was great. Um, so it's really, again, this is a great point to invest in yourself, and and we spend money, I mean, on all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. Like, we in the amount of money I spend at Starbucks. I used to spend at Starbucks, not so much anymore, but you can take that and invest in yourself, and it doesn't really, there's also a lot of free courses right now on YouTube and other resources. That there's no excuse. We talked about this in terms of like how to get yourself educated up to speed. But you've done quite more. I mean, the CISSP was the first one. Then you've done other
Right.
certifications. You continue your education throughout. And there's actually a question here, kind of general question when you describe your journey. It says, how would you describe your journey? Was it an easy, straightforward ride, or a difficult one that requires a lot of learning efforts and hours? So I'll let you answer this one.
Yeah, I don't think any journey is ever easy or straightforward. I had faced a lot of challenges in the beginning, um, just just navigating the world of IT, learning the different departments. Then I faced challenges where, I hate to say it, but I don't think I was taken seriously because I was a woman. At the time that I entered, and I've looked up these statistics recently, at the time that I entered the field, only about 10%, maybe 11% of people, of the individuals, were women. Now, thank goodness, it's opened up where there's a 24% of the FTEs are women, and I'm so happy to see that. Also, back then, getting information to study was like you buy the book or you pay for the boot camp. Now, like you said, oh my God, there's so many resources. There's YouTube. There's you can sign up for meetups, which is how I met you. In 2013, when I started the second job I was about to talk about, I was working in the city, commuting in, reading, on my iPad. Just bought myself an iPad. I set up a news feed to like sites like Dark Reading. I know people have mentioned Krebs. There's so Ars Technica, but there's so much to read in the
And then
daily
you
news.
actually
Yeah.
came to these events, right? You were like a
And then
participant
I
in physical
saw there
events.
was a meetup for New York Metro Infosec, and it was free. And I'm like, I'll take free, and I need my CPEs. So, and you serve pizza. I couldn't say no to that.
And it was good pizza
So,
as well. I'm
yeah,
looking
the
forward to
first
getting
one I
this back
went
on.
to was at like I think Metro Tech, but yeah, then there was a monthly thing, and then I just started realizing that there's education everywhere. There's a lot of groups, even messaging boards. There's tons of resources now, so there's no excuse to not educate yourself. And
And
that's
by
the
the
way
way,
I
Lisa,
see it.
so I love the statistics. I mean, first of all, the percentage increase is amazing. It basically double, so we're not there yet. We're not to the halfway mark. We should.
Right.
But I mean, it's very much encouraging that to see that there's more women getting into the profession and just in general into the sciences and so on. What would you recommend to basically women, since it's International Women's Day today, if you're in a just graduating or you're in a different role and you want to basically transition to the information security cybersecurity space, what would you recommend to for women who wants to take that path?
Well, first of all, I feel like, I want to dispel some myths. Women, just don't be afraid. Don't think because, there's your colleagues or your male teammates are hackers, and they know how to do certain tricks or quick programs that you don't know. Don't think you can't learn it. One of the things I told myself when I started the journey, going back to college, I mean, I was in my early 30s, and I said, what am I doing? I shouldn't, why am I going back to school? This is, what am I going to get out of this? But then I thought, just try it. Just, put your mind to it. You can do anything you put your mind to. So that's what I say to the women out there. If you want to get into cybersecurity and you feel like there's a place for you, be it in security awareness, training, or vulnerability management, that it really, I want to dispel the myth that it's hard. It's not. It takes work and dedication, but I don't think there's like it's not like trying to solve something unsolvable.
Yeah,
Does that
and
sound right?
no, it sounds about right. And I also think that the industry as a whole is super open. People typically like to help each other, and if you reach out to someone, they're very open. I know that women help each other as well, but it doesn't matter. It's just in terms of gender, anybody you get ask, can you help out? Can you redirect me to somewhere? I think the industry specifically is very, very open to people getting into the space. Everybody encourages that.
And I've seen it open up more. Like I said, I think I felt like in the beginning maybe I was kept out of the circle, but that could have been my perception. But certainly the help desk guys, they help me sometimes reluctantly, and they're like, "Oh, do I have to show you this?" And make me feel silly, but that's how you learn. You have to ask questions, and nobody knows everything. I don't care if, you've been in the field for 35, 40 years. There's still something that's new technologies are emerging, and you need to keep abreast of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So things change so quickly, in the space, in all fronts. It's really amazing, like how things have changed in the past several years. How do you keep abreast today, like in terms of, since you're in a management position today, right?
Yeah,
Um, how do you? That's what I've heard from other managers that director levels and above, that typically, they find they need to put the time in to make sure that they understand technology so they can better make decisions and work with their teams.
I agree. Because if you don't understand the area you're in and what's emerging and what the new tools are, if you don't stay abreast of alerts, like, I mean, one of the things that I signed up for in every company is the US CERT alerts. You need to sign up with Homeland Security. You need to know, what are the 0-day exploits. When you get those alerts and you're involved in the information security community, it's kind of like a wave, a ripple into a wave that just goes throughout the community, and then you research it. You need to take the time to research what you're doing. You need to understand tools because, like, for example, look, today everything has gone to the SaaS cloud platform. So yesterday, you might feel confident knowing when everything was on prem and you controlled it. The tools that you use to do vulnerability scans or patching, those tools are becoming more and more obsolete. So you need to see what else is out there. A good manager is constantly looking on the horizon for what is new and what can be used to make their job easier, and make their teams life easier, because nobody wants to resort to manual processes and spreadsheets or tracking things the long way. Things are now more automated. There's plenty of ways to correlate things. When the sim came about, oh my God, that changed the world for logging and events, incident and event management. Today we have a lot of RPA, the robotic process automation, which makes a lot of those little power scripting tasks, fall by the wayside. So, so there's always something that you have to read up on, and it's a wide ocean, but just pick and choose what you like. And of course, the big breaches, you have to know what's going on, because you have to be able to take it back, digest it and understand in your own organization whether or not there's a gap.
What do you think is the kind of biggest challenge right now facing organizations? Seems like you talked about tools and how the environment is changing. Companies spend a lot of money in resources on securing the enterprise, but it seems like every other day there's new breach, and then now it's supply chain. So now it's not about the enterprise, it's also about the partners and so on. you know where, as a senior person within a large organization, where do you see things going, and where do you think the gaps are right now in terms of what needs to be done, and then where do you see the gaps are kind of the next several months to years?
I mean, well, the there are gaps in third-party vendors and using third-party vendors. So once upon a time, you felt like you can rely upon a vendor and that when you sign a contract with them, that agreement was all you needed. Then, of course, you can always take it a step further, conduct a question, have them answer a questionnaire or conduct an interview with them to see that they're following security policies and best practices. But nowadays, every company is accountable um, monetarily, financially. So, and also a breach can mean a loss of reputation. I can name some big breaches or some companies where, you hear like Target was breached during the holidays, or, way back when Sony was breached, bringing it to more current events where they had the Experian breach. You know, Everyone was affected by these breaches. So, you have to really pay close attention to where you're putting your data, and you have to follow that data and make sure it's being encrypted end to end all along the route. So I think that is definitely one of the areas where companies are doing their due diligence, and they're doing a bit better than they have in the past.
I also
As
noticed.
far as anything on the yeah, go ahead.
No, I just also noticed that you've done a lot of kind of compliance work, specifically for these third party as well. For all the different ones, the PCI, the HIPAA, the GDPR, and so on. Do you find that the compliance space is changing? Compliance has never been it's almost makes people shudder sometimes. But now there's a cloud compliance for all those third party vendors and so on. Where do you think compliance is going from in that regards in terms of third party?
Well, truth be told, I'm actually kind of newer to compliance than the other areas.
Hmm.
Like I said, when I came up, I kind of came up as an analyst. So I worked with identity and access management, and then I did some SOC stuff. So I kind of always stayed away from risk management because I'm like, you know, that's too wordy. I don't want to read that stuff. But really, what it comes down to are basic controls, and there's frameworks out there. There's the NIST framework, which is the most commonly used framework. There's ISO frameworks and SOX and all other frameworks. But in the compliance space, I think there's a convergence with privacy. So I'm seeing now where, we're not just worried about securing the data so that it doesn't leave the organization, but we're also being very we're scrutinizing what type of data it is, and that we're classifying it properly, and that we're handling it with care. Because, this is like customers' information, patient records. That is in the in the world of regulatory, those are crown jewels, and companies can be fined millions of dollars for violating a regulatory body. Like with HIPAA alone, I used to think that well, if you're doing your best and you're showing that you've done your due diligence, you've marked all the controls, that's good enough. But to tell you the truth, with HIPAA, you can be fined for negligence, for something you didn't even know was going on in your organization, and somehow a gap was there. Um, if you knew about the gap and you didn't do anything, if you didn't remediate, you're accountable.
Yeah, I completely agree, and what you mentioned about the privacy is a really great point. The it's not just about the breach itself, is who owns the data, who's the custodian, the rights to be forgotten, and so on for GDPR especially. So there's a quick question here. Do you agree with the reports and claims that we have a shortage of cyber talent?
Yes, I do. I mean, I know that there are students graduating college right now, raring to go and get in the field. And I like to see that. I know a lot of times seems to be there's like a disconnect between human resources and the actual hiring managers. Because on the one hand, yes, we want to see experienced talent, but that doesn't necessarily translate in the hiring process. I think individuals can learn on the job. I think they can do what I did. I mean, I came in with basic knowledge that I've got in college and with a small internship for a semester, and then just business sense, and I adapted. So it seems also once you're in the environment, um, like you were mentioning before, there's all these great tools that we buy as a company, but yet we don't sit down and really become familiar and intimate with those tools. I can't tell you, I wish I could clone myself, or I wish I had just that much more time to understand the GRC tool that I
I think,
have in
Louisa, I
front of
think
me.
cloning is definitely coming. Didn't they clone that sheep like years and years ago?
Yeah,
I think that'd be a
I
solution for all the shortage
I
in
just I wanna be able to do so many things at the same time, and I almost don't even wanna communicate with my mouth. I just wanna telepathically, like, tell you what I'm
That's coming
thinking,
too. I think
and you
Elon Musk is
and you
working
just
on a
do
chip.
it, right? Like, I'm
Yeah,
just gonna tell you, "This is what I need," and you give it to me.
augmented,
Um,
augmented
yeah, we're
thinking.
gonna be part of the matrix. That would be great. Then I could
Yeah,
upload what I need.
I love, tremendous insight. So I'd like to sharpen that as well. The fact that you mentioned that there's a lot of new graduates that just coming into the workforce right now, highly qualified, but then maybe not having the kind of the right experience. And I think this is the problem, is that we don't, organizations don't allow people with, they have a lot of position open for the kind of the mid-level and the
Mhm.
senior level, but the entry level, it seems like they're always lacking. They always want, kind of the 5-year experience, and all those new graduates are having a hard time because they don't have that. It's the kind of the, chicken and the egg. They're not going to have it if they don't get the first
It's
job.
and
And
it's a shame because I've worked with millennials. I've worked with, kids. I'm calling them kids, but, like, people right out of college, and they are so sharp, and they bring to mind things that I never would think of. So I
they're
you
so
know,
smart, Louisa, as well. They're like amazingly smart,
they're
right? Is that
amazingly smart. They have a different way of looking at, problems. They have a lot of energy, which is really, I think, once you're in cyber for a while, you're like, you get a little drained. It really sucks the energy and the life right out of you. But if there's somebody who can give you like a fresh perspective, a fresh approach, it enervates you. Then you want to you kind of want to rise to that level, and that's why I like mixed teams. Like, I have to say, the team that I'm on now, it's first of all the largest security team that I've worked with. It's the most ethnically diverse. We have women and men, and I was going to say, you know, what do you say it? Not i- People from other countries who are working, alongside us on the team. So it's just so diverse. Um, and you
and
get
by
a
the way,
lot.
yeah, diversity provides strength, I think, to the organization as well. I think a lot of, like, it's known that the, diverse workforce, really promotes that strength of the organization. And you're absolutely correct. So I mean, the takeaway from this is, hire, give people a chance to get the first position if they have the aptitude to learn, and the curiosity and the drive and the passion and the energy. Give them a chance. What's the worst going to happen? You can always, like, it's basically employment at will, right? So give them the chance to prove themselves. hire more women, diverse workforce, but basically just give new graduates a chance to succeed. For all those hiring managers out there, I think
And I think what's
Louisa
tough
is providing
is
that
that
wisdom.
I think it's tough too is that when you do hire these people, you know you want to set aside to sit with them and train them and really bring them on board, because going on in a day and your things, but if you just kind of downshift, you're in the high gear, but if you just downshift for a little, get the person on board, then you'll see that it will actually help. It'll maybe you can delegate to them some of the work that you've been taking on to manage your stress, and it helps the team kind of learn new tasks. I'm all for cross training, and I think I've touched upon that already.
No, this is great. So we are coming closer to kind of the time allotted here today. But before we wrap up, I know you're an avid, vinyl collector and you love music and live shows. Maybe you can tell us a bit, what was kind of the first show you watched, live, and you have a kind of interesting story around that. And I love bringing this because it's not all about cybersecurity. We're all individuals with personalities and personal traits and passions and hobbies and so on, and this is something typically we don't find out until maybe after you come into the office and have a cup of coffee together.
The very first concert that I remember going to, and I don't even know if anybody knows this band, the Hooters from the East, and better band opened for them was the Outfield. They opened for the Hooters. My first concert at Jones Beach, and the only reason why I got a ticket was because I guess somebody got out of it, and so I went, and then after Jones at Radio City. So that I always say that's my first concert because he's very cool in my book. But I think also, if I'm really thinking about it, growing up, I'm very lucky. My father has a passion for music, and he, just like clapping hands, singing in the morning. He taught himself to play the piano by ear, so he always had music going on. When my mom dinning and her cooking, she put on her music, up with music and a beats. So I love all kinds of music. As I said before, there's only two genres. There's good and there's bad, and everything else is something
great,
some classification that somebody made up.
That's amazing.
Good music or bad music.
This was so great. I hope I'll get to see you soon when we open up in New York City in my monthly events. But in the meantime, where can people find you? If they want to get
they can find me on LinkedIn. I have a profile there. Yeah, if they want to get back in touch with me, I'm trying to build out my. Of course, I'm on the Meetup group, so the Information Security Meetup. I'm still a member there, and of course, I sit on the New York Metro chapter for ACM, which is the Association of Computing Machinery. So we are always looking for members. It's actually a really good organization to become a member to. It's fairly cheap to join, and we have monthly meetups. Of course, everything's virtual now. And we have different SIGs, so there's different groups of interest. There's a cybersecurity group. I think there's a big data group. And there's one for healthcare. So you can find
That's
me in
fantastic.
any of those communities.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. Tremendous insight on so many various topics, and congratulations on your success and continued success. I can see you, advance to the CISO probably very soon one day. We'll come and do this again, maybe in person next
Well,
time.
thank you.
So
I have
thank
to
you.
tell you though, it really is an honor. It's an honor to have been invited. I thank you so much.
Thank you again. Looking forward to see you in person.
Yes,
Thank you all
better
for joining.
days.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. I'll see you next time.